It's all right.
So, congratulations on your career. You're just about to retire from the Sydney Symphony Orchestra. And which Melbourne orchestra did you start in?
It's now called Orchestra Victoria, plays for the opera and ballet.
Right. So you've played for, give or take, 5,000 people a week in Sydney and starting in Melbourne. You've toured the world. And no one's going to know. No one's going to know your name.
That's right.
So, who the hell are you?
Exactly. No, it's a good point, really. That once you've left the seat, they've already auditioned my job and found somebody to replace me, which is great news. I encouraged them to do so. So, yep, I'll be forgotten very quickly. But fortunately for me, I don't depend on. That's not what makes me happy in my job.
Yes.
So it'll be 40 years, and actually the people who count do remember me. I'm hearing lovely messages from old colleagues in Melbourne from 40 years ago, wishing me well. So that's lovely.
And a lot of love with the orchestra performances.
Yes, very much so, I think. Yeah. I think the orchestra is much, much younger than me. I'm the longest serving member of the woodwind section. And a lot of the strings are coming through, in their early 30s, some in the late 20s. And really, when I joined, I was 26. And I couldn't care less really about the older people. I looked at them and I didn't feel like I had anything in common with them. So I can't blame my young colleagues. They're all lovely to me, but they don't really understand what it's been like to have been here so long, and they got no idea the wonderful things that I've done, and I don't really expect them to care.
Well, we'll try and get some of those out. Now, back to the beginning. When we were teenagers, I remember coming home in the middle of the night after a gig. I was probably the worst for wear, and finding you in the living room with James Galway, playing flute, of course. He might have had other intentions, but you were playing music.
Mum and Dad were there, so it was all very...
But did you ever dream of being a star? And I'm thinking of today. So much music is hip hop music is ego driven. In fact, a track can be only about how good the singer is that's attempting to sing it. Did you ever dream of being a star?
Not really, though. When I finished school and I went to Melbourne to that job, I practiced a lot, because at that age, in my 20s, there were competitions I could enter, and I eventually did win one, the big one. And,
which one?
That's still going. It's called the National Flute Competition, and it's every 2 or 3 years. It's every 2 years now, and then it was every 3 years. And my prize, this was 1986. My prize was a trip to America to play for James Galway, actually, who I already knew then. But so I didn't dream of being a star, but I dreamed of winning.
Yes.
and I did. And then I moved to Sydney. I was a flute player before, and then I became a piccolo player overnight. And those who know, musicians, know that there's really no difference. All flute players play the piccolo, and all piccolo players play the flute. But my identity became from first flute to piccolo. So in a way, I was shoved down the end of the line.
Did you mind?
Not at all, no. I never minded, because piccolo is a great job in that hardly anyone wants to do it. Like flute players tend to run a mile, and but I seem to have the knack. So I thought, good, this is my chair, and nobody's going to try and take it from me. And it's a principal position. In other words, I got paid nicely for it, and I was regarded as a principal. And I had a couple of cracks at trying to break out and be a flute player again that didn't work, but I was always very happy that didn't happen.
Do I remember you going through a decision-making process of whether, because I know you studied in Europe for a little while, whether to try and stay and build a career in Europe and try and be, as it were, a bigger fish in a bigger pond. It's in the, or you're happy to be like the exquisitely competent professional.
The latter. I never had a clue. I know much more about it now, but it's too late. How to, live, how to succeed in other countries other than Australia. But no, I love being competent. That's my highest aim, even though some people might use that as a less than glowing compliment. I'm really happy with that.
No, well, that goes to our father. It's the highest compliment I can think of as well, is to be competent.
Yeah.
So I should say, for those that don't know, our father, Roy Plummer, was an extremely competent jazz guitar player.
Yeah.
So as we grew up, we were always around music. And we had recorder at Rose Bay Public School. Now, music education's been in the media a bit lately. There's a special on the ABC, and with the death of Richard Gill, and so his career in music education has had some publicity. How much credit do you give recorder at school to the path you've gone into flute?
I do count that as the start. And I was even a little bit ambitious then. I remember playing in a school concert, English Country Garden. I'll never forget. I don't know what I thought I was doing. But yeah, I was a little bit ambitious even then to just do it. So yeah, and then Dad chose the flute for me. I was well and truly on it as well. But I actually remember saying to him that I wanted to learn the oboe.
Right.
And he said no. I don't know why.
Probably because you were chewing the end of a recorder too much and you'd chewed the reed.
And I think he knew what a hard instrument the oboe is, and not that flute's not a difficult instrument, but and he had colleagues who were flute players, Don Burrows, for example, who would have helped him out with all that. So, but recorder is, nowadays, not many schools do recorder. They've all got crash-hot bands with, piles of expensive
ukulele, lots of ukulele.
Yeah, there's lots of new trends, and, there need to be more choirs as opposed to bands. But anyway, recorder.
So you've mentioned that obviously you put the work in when you were young. I feel a bit of a nitwit because I'm having to do all my scales and exercises now at 58 years old because I didn't do them.
But you know what? I didn't really figure out what practice was till I was in about year 11. I've got no memory of proper practice.
Well, I've got no memory of year 11.
I don't know what I did in those early years, but I must have done enough to end me up in a good place.
How much do you have to do today to keep it up?
It comes and goes. Because I'm so lucky to play for a living. A decent warm-up and then playing all day is enough for my normal repertoire. If there's something special on, I'll do extra. And I'm trying to do a bit extra now in these last few weeks, so that I go out sounding decent.
Yes. Now, a flute player's question. Do you have any particular technical bugbears, something that you've been weak at, so you have to work on to build it up?
Yes.
What?
Fast tonguing has always been my problem, and I've managed to get away with it.
Find workarounds.
Yes, and it's been 40 years of getting away. No, some of my students will turn up with faster tonguing than me, and it is a bit of a knack, and I have worked very hard at it for my whole life, and finally given up. But yeah, fast tonguing is essential on the flute, and a lot of repertoire is full of fast tonguing, and I've managed to survive.
Now, you've had to play the same music over your career over and over again, sometimes. For instance, Beethoven and Brahms.
Yeah.
How do you keep it fresh? And again, I think of Richard Gill, who said we play that music simply because it's good. Yeah. So how have you kept the novelty should never wear off? How do you keep it fresh?
Well, for example, we played Beethoven 9 a couple of weeks ago, and it was being live streamed, so that gave me an extra, It's been hard lately, which is to keep it fresh, which is one of the reasons I'm not going to stay any longer. I think if I'm bored with it, then that's bad. So I need to remove myself, and I really look forward to coming to concerts to hear other people play it. But yeah, just my self-esteem is high enough. My sense of needing to do a good job is high enough to yeah. But that's one of the things that has made me think maybe I should let somebody else have a go.
Now, another flute player's question. What are some of the hardest passages in what works?
For piccolo specifically, there's maybe a handful of difficult solos that if you make a mess of it, it's egg on your face. Tchaikovsky Fourth Symphony Scherzo, the Beethoven 9, a lot of Shostakovich, big solos. But I think Tchaikovsky Fourth Scherzo is at the top because you sit there for 2 whole movements doing nothing. Then you have to do the musical equivalent of a triple back somersault flip in pike position, and it's so quick, and I'm rarely conscious while I'm playing it. It's so scary and fast, and then after I've played it I sit there going and I do a quick post-mortem, and I've never messed it up, but it's the fear that all piccolo players have, because it's just such a highlight of the piece. And
oddly enough, piccolos would be a bit like the tuba. Every note you play is a solo.
Yes.
It's so exposed.
It is, yeah.
What's some new music that's grabbed you without going into popular music? Because I'll talk about that in a minute. But what contemporary orchestral music's grabbed you?
Our chief conductor, David Robertson, is American, and he also loves new music. I'm not talking very new, unfortunately, but say the great music of the latter half of the 20th century,
like
Messiaen, The Canyon to the Stars.
Playing some Messiaen at the moment.
Oh, I love Messiaen.
I see it in my Facebook feed. The orchestra.
It's unique. It's one chord, and you can tell who wrote it. It's challenging. He loves birds, so I always have a lot to play.
He survived a concentration camp?
I don't know. All I know is he had synesthesia. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
That's the colour thing. When you hear a chord, you hear it in colours. Yeah. Ligeti.
Yes.
Some wonderful music. Boulez.
Yes.
So these are all unfortunately not particularly audience appealing pieces, so we play them seldom.
Right.
It's a brave orchestra that programs that stuff a lot, but we have done enough.
Have done sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We also have a resident composer for the last 3 years, Brett Dean, and his works are very challenging and up to the minute.
Right.
So that's been good too.
What non-classical music grabbed you? Like, I know, for instance, you're falling in love with Ben Folds.
Ben Folds.
And personally, I've become a metalhead. The virtuosity and the writing and the attention to detail in some, like Metallica.
Well,
what's grabbed you?
Well, what you just said about Metallica, that I'm with whom I'm not familiar, that's what I admire about Ben Folds, or any of the others that I will try and name. They've got to be geniuses as far as I'm concerned, and then I can go for it.
Yeah.
Kate Miller-Hyde.
Well, you stalk Ben Folds. You go and see him.
I go and see him every time, and I sit up the front.
Yes.
And I think he's a marvellous musician. I never would have heard of Ben Folds, but we do so-called commercial concerts where we'll be the backing band, basically, and that's where I got to know him. He doesn't use us anymore. I'm not sure why. We're too busy or whatever. We're too expensive, maybe. But So I did two concerts with him, and the way he treated us, he's a brilliant pianist,
Yes.
a brilliant songwriter. I love his voice, wouldn't call it brilliant, but it's real.
Yes.
And he's a real person, if you know what I mean. Like he's puts his heart and soul out there. He's natural. He doesn't put on a show like some others that we've had that tend not to come back again. But
Yes.
yeah, so I just find his songwriting, all styles of songs that he writes, just really meaningful.
You've alluded to some nice things there. I've always thought a musician's job, the job description is to convey emotion. And that doesn't necessarily mean musical perfection or the best voice.
Yeah, no, that's right. And that's what I always think when I'm hearing him. I'm thinking, this guy does not have the best voice, but I'll just love listening to him. So
Who in the classical world, what soloists, who have you met, and who do you admire, who inspires you? And on the spot, have you got any funny stories that come to mind?
Oh, gosh, because in my job we have brilliant soloists every week.
Right.
Violin usually, piano.
And you've had the pleasure of working with Jimmy Lynn quite a bit.
Charlie Lynn, exactly, school. Hasn't been out for a while, but please note that I'm not mentioning flute players in particular, mostly because we don't get many flute soloists. I actually wrote, when I was about 16, I wrote to the ABC, who used to own the orchestra then, and say, why don't you have more flute solos or bassoon or anything? Why is it always... They didn't really have a good answer. They just said it doesn't sell, basically.
Right, yes.
And maybe that's true or not. I don't know. So I love the more mature artists that come through. There's so many whiz-bang new names out there. Don't ask me names, I'm drawing a blank here, but my colleagues and I always admire the more mature artists. There's something, particularly piano, which I think is difficult to... it's not my favourite instrument. I love the violin or anything, but a mature concert pianist who can do something really special with a piano is something to be admired. For example, Jean-Yves Thibaudet, we had a couple of weeks ago, who always plays French repertoire with such class. And he's quite flamboyant as well, so I like him.
Ever had stage fright? You mentioned the Tchaikovsky, and I know you've done concertos.
Yeah. So that's I don't suffer from it anymore.
When I say concerto, for people that don't know, I mean a soloist out the front of the orchestra. Yeah.
That was Vivaldi. There's not many concertos for piccolo. So finally, about I don't know, it was 10 years ago maybe. They asked me to do Vivaldi concerto, and I thought, at last. And I thought they'll probably never ask me again.
Yes.
So I wanted to enjoy it, not only play well, because I knew the piece backwards, but I actually wanted to enjoy it. But I used to get very nervous and really kind of. It was a pain. It didn't seem to ruin anything I was doing, but I just didn't like it. And for this 11-minute piece in front of the orchestra and my colleagues in Angel Place, I wanted to, and you came, didn't you?
Yes.
I wanted to enjoy it. So you know what I did? I went to a hypnotherapist.
Ah.
Yeah. One of my students had seen this woman who was also a physiotherapist. And we were just chatting. I said, do you think she could help me? And my student said, I don't know, why don't you give her a call? So I gave her a call, and she said, well, what do you want? I said, I want to enjoy my performance. Because she said, good, I can help you with that, but I can't help you play the piece. I said, leave that to me. And it was fascinating, and it worked. Don't ask me to describe it, though, because it was very weird. There were no ticking, there were no, clocks or nothing magic, except... It was. And
am I right in thinking that the slow movement in a concerto like that you can improvise?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did in that.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
So a lot of people might not know.
Yeah. Well, that was fantastic because the Vivaldi in Baroque slow movements you can improvise,
town.
go to town.
Yes.
And that's what they did in the olden days.
Yes.
But now, of course, everybody works it out and writes it out.
Yes.
And I've done that for years, and I never liked it. It always, and with students, it always sounded contrived.
Yes.
So I thought, I'm going to do it on the spot.
Yes.
And because I was wildly kind of relaxed and happy in my space, thank you to the hypnotherapist.
It worked a treat.
And I improvised the whole lot,
Yes.
and very confidently. Though I, you know, I wasn't like a student or anything. I'd had lots of experience, enough experience to feel that I could do that.
Mm.
So.
Tell me about your final Sydney Symphony concert coming up. Where and when and what and how? And...
I have hit the jackpot. I've timed my retirement perfectly because the orchestra leaves for Europe in a week and a half.
Yes.
So we've already started preparing and presenting all our tour programs for the Sydney audiences. We're playing Mahler Fifth Symphony, Prokofiev Fifth Symphony, Beethoven Seventh, a whole lot of wonderful concertos. And then we'll leave for Europe, and we're not going to the UK unfortunately, but lots of wonderful cities, Paris,
Yes.
Warsaw.
And your final concert's in Denmark?
Denmark, in a city called Aalborg.
I know my wife will be there.
Yes, I
Annie.
know,
Yes.
that is wonderful. And it's where Jorn Utzon lived.
Right.
And heaps of his family is still there.
Ah.
Of course, he designed
I
the
wonder
Sydney Opera
if they
House.
might come because there's a connection with the
I'm sure
orchestra
they
from
will. I'm sure, because when I saw Aalborg, I thought, where's that? And I think it's hilarious that, you know, you can't, there's no crystal ball for this. You know, you can desperately try and figure out and plan.
Yes.
You know, but if somebody had said, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, your final concert in the Sydney Symphony will be in Aalborg,
Yes.
I would have gone, why? Like, no, I don't think so. So I think it's marvellously random.
Yes.
But as it turns out, not random, because it's
And you
the
might
Nielsen.
get cheese and crackers and a champagne.
I reckon
after that.
there'll be a party. It won't be my party, but I'll be at it. They always give us a good party at the end of a tour. So.
Now, the word retirement doesn't really have any meaning now.
No.
Where next?
Yeah, well, yeah, because people call it retirement, and I allow them to say it, but it's like...
It's a different meaning now.
Yeah. So I teach a lot at the conservatorium, mostly high school
Which
students.
is where we are.
Yep. And I love it. I love teaching high school students, particularly as it's the school that we went to, so I really relate to the kids. They haven't changed a bit. There's still a wide variety, from ratbag to, you know... yeah, they're all in there.
Yes.
So I've heard it all before, in other
Yes.
words, and I've done it all before. So I love that, and that'll be about 2 days a week, all up. And
An interest in Japanese
Yes.
music I'm fishing for?
Yeah.
Where's that come
Well,
from?
randomly into my inbox about 5 years ago came through a very circuitous route an application form for a so-called residency on offer by Columbia University in New York to spend a month in Tokyo learning one of a selection of Japanese traditional woodwind instruments. A powerhouse by the name of Professor Barbara Rusch, Professor of Medieval Japanese History, is
Wow.
crazy about medieval Japanese music.
Yes.
I have never been crazy about it.
No, that's an odd thing to be crazy
Japan
about.
was like,
Yes.
you know, I'd rather go play tin whistle or something. Anyway, I had been to Japan and kind of liked it, and anyway, I thought it had my name written all over it. They were looking for a under 50, which I wasn't, which goes to show never let little details get in the way of, you know, success. A professional woodwind player in an established orchestra, in other words, somebody who could take full advantage of this and then come back to Australia and kind of spread the word. And so anyway, I won that money, and it was a great deal of money and trust given to me by Columbia in New York. So in the end I went for 3 months to learn a ryoteki, which is a side-blown traditional Japanese you would never have heard of it.
A side blow.
Yeah, in other
Right,
words,
yes.
everybody thinks
No,
of
shakuhachi,
shakuhachi.
yes.
Yeah, so this is a side blown thing that's
Stick.
yeah, it's a very bamboo. Everything's bamboo in Japan. No, it's a very limited use. But I learned all about medieval Japanese, and then I did contemporary music on it
Yes.
as well, and it was fabulous opportunity. And then when I got back, I felt such a responsibility because it was a lot of money that they'd given to me, and I used every cent of it.
And you learnt the instrument.
Yeah, and I thought I can't just like put it away. So I started looking for ways to show what I've done. So I did some presentations around Sydney and a few concerts, but the instrument itself was very limited, no repertoire really. So I started learning the shakuhachi, which is a lifetime project
Right.
of an instrument. It's a very difficult, fascinating instrument. And so, yeah, I can't wait to. I have a teacher in Katoomba.
A student to the end.
A student to the end.
A very fine teacher. What's her name?
Her name is Bronwyn Kirkpatrick.
Yes, I've played a wedding with a guitar and shakuhachi.
And she
yes,
remembered that
yes.
too. And it's an instrument that requires supreme patience, and the teacher requires even more patience. So she is perfect for me, and she has a lot of adult students. And even being a beginner, you know, I think I'll always be a beginner on that instrument, has helped my teaching. Not to mention I learn about breathing and all kinds of other stuff, Asian music. But it's, yeah, I love having a thread that I've done lots of things and given up on them, like various sporting activities and hobbies, don't we all?
Well, you run marathons, don't you?
Yeah, and I will again. I've just taken the year off because I've been very busy. But I love the idea that this instrument I'll always play. I'll never reach a level. I'm good enough on it not to, you know, get frustrated.
You could do a wedding?
Oh, I wouldn't. I really, seriously. In fact, this is an instrument that you get out of its sock and you want to show a friend, this is how it sounds. Nothing comes out.
Right.
After 3 years of lessons, nothing's coming out, and it does that to me all the time.
Right.
So I wouldn't risk a public performance for another 5 years or so.
Right.
Yeah.
A student to the end, which is an inspiration.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we should probably finish there.
Good.
So, congratulations again.
Thanks,
on a
Alan.
wonderful, it's silly to say a wonderful career, a wonderful part of your
Yeah.
career, and see what happens next.
I've been the luckiest person on earth.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.